Okay, guys, so this is a review of fascism in Italy. Between World War I and World War II, the world suffered through the Great Depression. During this economic crisis, many people lost their jobs and savings. Democratic governments had not been able to help people who suffered during the Depression. So some governments turned to a different type of government. So some countries turned to a different type of government. In Italy, for example, people wanted a leader who would take action. Benito Mussolini started the first fascist state in the early 1920s. During a time of economic turmoil and political corruption, Mussolini promised to bring order to Italy. He gained popularity with his patriotic and nationalistic speeches. Mussolini knew the Italian people were angry that Italy did not get more land from the peace settlement after World War I. He promised to bring back Roman greatness. Mussolini won many supporters. In 1922, fascists marched on the Italian capital of Rome. Mussolini threatened the king. He said, "Either we are allowed to govern or we will seize power." Afraid, the king gave in and made Mussolini prime minister. Mussolini used his position as prime minister to create a new fascist government for Italy. Fascism is a type of totalitarian government. And in our discussions, they're going to be basically synonyms, right? In a totalitarian state, the government controls everything in its citizens' lives. Fascist Italy was governed by one leader and had one political party. Fascists believed that citizens should put loyalty to their country above everything else. Fascists did not agree with the Enlightenment ideas that had been popular for so long. Limited government and the guarantee of individual freedoms were finished. Instead, fascists tried to create a nation of disciplined, war-loving citizens. The fascists used violence to rule. Under Mussolini, it became illegal for the press to say anything bad about the government. The police were allowed to arrest people and put them in jail for any reason. The fascists made it illegal for other political parties to exist in Italy. Although Italy still had a king, Mussolini was the dictator or single leader of the country. He ruled the country as Il Duce, which is Italian for the leader. Supporters of fascism liked the political movement because it promised a strong, stable government. Fighting between political parties had made democratic rule seem hopeless. A strong leader, Mussolini showed power and confidence during a confusing time. Other nations, like Germany, saw Mussolini's success in Italy. In fact, Italian fascists' achievements were soon overshadowed by a German admirer of Mussolini, Adolf Hitler. Okay, so we're going to look at the questions here. Question one, the blank happened between World War I and World War II. This was the Great Depression. That's what we just read in the reading. In a blank, the government controls everything in its citizens' lives. This is a totalitarian state. Again, we're probably going to use the word fascism and the word totalitarian. They're similar enough that we'll probably use those interchangeably. So be ready for that. Mussolini started the first fascist state in Italy. Now, this might not actually be true. There were earlier fascist states. Actually, Rome's history of having a fascist leader. I mean, that was probably the first fascist state. I think what they mean is the first modern fascist state. At any rate, in Mussolini's fascist state, it was all of the above. It was illegal for the press to say bad things about the government. The police were allowed to arrest people for any reason, and it was illegal for other political parties to exist. Supporters of fascism liked the political movement because it promised a strong, stable government. Okay, so anytime you hear a leader talking about a strong, stable government and they have lots of followers, you have to wonder, hey, how strong, how stable, how strong of a government are they counting on? Okay. because that's what fascism's supporters really were into. Now, officially, this is from the crossword here, crossword. Okay. Officially, oh, that's not right. Officially, Mussolini was the prime minister of Italy. Remember, he went to the king and said, hey, we're going to be in charge, or we're going to take charge. Now, the fascists tried to create a nation of disciplined, war-loving citizens. And Mussolini promised to bring back Roman greatness. They wanted to make Italy great again. And to do this, the fascists used violence to rule. And under Mussolini, Italy had one leader and one political party, the fascist party only, and Il Duce as the one leader. Again, question 8 here. Mussolini was known as Il Duce. Duce is sort of similar to the word duke. So if you guys have ever heard the word duke, that's a type of leader. Il Duce is what he was called when he was in power. Now, one German admirer of Mussolini was, of course, Adolf Hitler. You guys probably know more about Adolf Hitler than you have ever heard of Mussolini. But at any rate, Hitler was an admirer of Mussolini. In Italy, people wanted a leader who would take action. I forgot to blank that one out. That was it was Italy in blank. People wanted a leader who would take action. So that was in Italy. Now, Mussolini won many supporters with his patriotic and nationalistic speeches. He spent a lot of time talking about how awesome Italy was and how they needed to take the land back from the people who had fought them, and how they needed to take control and end the violence in the streets and things like that. Of course, the last question here comes from the beginning of the reading. It talks about the Great Depression, which was an economic crisis. Italy and Europe and really the world, they were on hard times. There was not enough stuff to go around to satisfy what people needed. And so it was called a depression, the Great Depression. Now, when we look at the chart here talks about Mussolini, Stalin, and Hitler. Of course, Adolf Hitler ruled over Germany. Joseph Stalin's political title was the General Secretary. And Mussolini came to power in 1922. That's what the reading says right here, 1922. Now, in the extension, I asked you, what do you think Mussolini meant when he wanted to turn the Mediterranean Sea into a, quote, Roman lake? So let's just look at a map really quick. Let's zoom out of home here real quick. Let's go over to Italy. He wanted to make the Mediterranean Sea, this sea, a Roman lake, which meant he looked at all of this territory, everything on the screen right now, as something that could be under the control of Italy, with the Mediterranean Sea as under its control. And so, in my opinion, that's what he meant. Okay, so Mussolini definitely had some really big aspirations for what he wanted Italy to be. Okay, so this is the first of the fascist or totalitarian dictators that we'll read about. We will read a little more about Stalin, and we'll read about Hitler coming up as well.